Today, I'll talk about why investing is all about putting the odds in your favor, with the clear understanding that there are no guarantees. You can do everything right, and it still may not work out. It's about doing the right things, consistently, all the time, and then letting the market be the market. The only thing you can truly control is stacking the probabilities in your favor. This is the subtle but profound difference between speculation and investment. Speculation is hoping for a good outcome. Investment is engineering a series of situations where good outcomes are the logical, probable result of your actions over time. You are not a gambler rolling dice. You are a builder constructing a bridge. The gambler hopes the dice land a certain way. The builder knows that if he follows the laws of physics and uses proven materials, the bridge will stand. His certainty comes from the process, not from a wish. Think of it like being the captain of a sturdy ship sailing across a vast, unpredictable ocean. You are captain, probability. You cannot control the ocean itself. You cannot command the waves to be calm or the winds to always be at your back. Great storms will arise. Periods of eerie, windless calm will stall your progress. These are the market's moods. The bull runs and the bear markets, the bubbles and the crashes. They are inherent to the journey. But what can you control? You can control the ship you build. You can choose a design with a deep, heavy keel for stability, not a shallow, fast skiff that capsizes in the first squall. You can carefully stock it with ample provisions and fresh water to endure longer passages than you anticipate. You can train your crew in disciplined routines and drill them for emergencies. You can plot your course using the stars and a reliable compass, your long-term goals and your moral analytical framework, rather than chasing every reported mirage of land on the horizon. And most importantly, you can control your own reaction to the weather. When a storm hits, you batten down the hatches, reef the sails, and point the bow into the waves. You don't jump overboard because you're scared, and you don't decide to throw the navigation charts overboard because you're angry at the wind. You ride it out, trusting in the strength of your vessel and the soundness of your preparations. The ocean does not guarantee you a smooth passage, but a well-built, well-provisioned, and well-captained ship has overwhelming odds of reaching its destination across many voyages. Investing is that multi-decade voyage. The market is the ocean. Your strategy is your ship, your provisions, your crew, and your navigation. You control the preparation and the discipline. You do not control the sea. Let me tell you a detailed story about two orchardists, whom we will call Arthur and Leo. They both inherited a plot of land of equal size in a fertile valley. Their goal was the same: to establish a thriving, productive apple orchard that would support their families for generations. Arthur was a student of probability. He spent a full year just observing his land. He tested the soil in a dozen different places. He tracked the sun's path to understand frost pockets. He visited the oldest orchards in the region to learn which apple varieties were most resilient to the local pests and climate swings. Not necessarily the ones with the flashiest, most expensive fruit, but the hardy, dependable ones. He then designed his orchard with wide spacing between trees for air circulation, planted robust, disease-resistant rootstock, and installed a simple but effective irrigation system fed from a reliable spring. His initial harvests were modest. Some trees failed. A late frost one year took out a portion of his blossoms, but his system was robust. The trees that survived grew strong. He pruned methodically every winter, fed the soil with compost, and never overwatered. He accepted that some years would be lean and that pests would always be a threat. His focus was on the health of the entire system. Leo was in a hurry. He wanted results. He read about a new, patented apple variety that promised enormous, sweet fruit and quick maturation. He invested most of his capital in these delicate, high-yield saplings. He planted them close together to maximize his tree count on the deed. He used chemical fertilizers to boost early growth and heavy pesticides to keep everything pristine. His first few harvests were indeed impressive. The apples were large and beautiful. He made good money and boasted about his modern methods. But his system was fragile. The trees, packed tightly and grown artificially fast, were vulnerable. A blight that swept the valley a few years later devastated his monoculture. The chemicals had degraded his soil's natural health. The irrigation he relied on came from a shallow well that ran dry in a drought. Within a decade, Leo was struggling. He was constantly fighting fires, new diseases, soil depletion, water issues. He was reacting, not cultivating. Arthur, meanwhile, had a slower start but was now hitting his stride. His diverse, hardy trees resisted the blight. His deep-rooted varieties found water. His soil was alive and fertile. His harvests were now reliable and growing steadily. He had fewer perfect-looking apples, but he had far more bushels in total year after year. He had built an orchard with odds overwhelmingly in its favor. Leo had built an orchard that required everything to go perfectly, and when the inevitable problems arose, the odds collapsed against him. Now, let us consider a different domain entirely, the world of professional poker. This is a powerful second story because it strips away the business facade and deals purely with chance, information, and psychology. Imagine a top professional player, we'll call her Claire, sitting down at a table. Claire knows with absolute certainty that she cannot control what cards are dealt. On any single hand, she could be dealt the best possible cards and still lose to an absurd, unlikely draw from an opponent. She could also make what is objectively a small mathematical mistake and still win a huge pot through sheer luck. If she judged her success based on any single hand, she would be emotionally wrecked and intellectually bankrupt. So, what does she control? She controls her decision-making process. She calculates pot odds, the size of the bet versus the size of the pot, and her statistical chance of completing a winning hand. She reads opponents for tells that give her slivers of extra probabilistic information. She manages her chip stack so that a run of bad luck doesn't knock her out of the tournament. And she has the emotional discipline to fold a good hand when the odds have clearly turned against her, and to place a large bet with a mediocre hand when the odds and the situation are in her favor. Over an evening, a week, a year of play, Claire's rigorous odds-based approach will see her profit. The weekend amateur who gets lucky and beats her one night will, over time, give all his money back and more. Claire's edge is not in predicting cards. It is in constructing a framework where her decisions have a positive expected value, and then having the granite discipline to execute that framework thousands of times, irrespective of short-term results. Investing is not poker. You are not playing against other investors to take their money directly, but the psychological parallel is exact. You are dealt a set of facts about a company, your cards. The future is unknown, the coming community cards. You must bet your capital, your chips, based on the perceived odds of a good outcome. And you must do this over and over, without letting the outcome of the last hand distort the odds of the next one. From these stories, the captain, the orchardist, and the poker player, we extract the core, unshakable principle. Investing is a marathon of making good decisions with favorable odds, not a sprint to find sure things. Success is not defined by avoiding loss, but by ensuring that your process for selecting and holding investments is so robust that, over a large number of decisions and a long period of time, the inherent probabilities compound in your favor. This means you must fundamentally redefine what a good decision is. A good decision is one made with a rational process that acknowledges and weighs probabilities. It is not a decision that simply makes money. A foolish bet that wins is still a foolish bet. A wise bet that loses due to an unforeseeable event is still a wise bet. You must learn to grade yourself on your process, not your quarterly statement. So, for you, this means building a personal operating system designed to identify high-odds situations and to protect you from the emotional corruption that destroys probabilistic thinking. This is not a single action, but a series of interconnected controls. Let us break down this actionable guidance into its detailed components. First, you must control your search parameters, your circle of competence. This is your fertile valley, your familiar sea lane. You cannot accurately assess odds in a game you do not understand. If you cannot explain how a company makes money, what its competitive advantages are, and what could realistically kill it over the next 10 years, then you have no basis for calculating odds. You are guessing. Your odds are 50-50 at best. Therefore, your first and most powerful act of putting odds in your favor is to strictly limit your investments to areas you have taken the time to understand deeply. This doesn't mean you need to be an electrical engineer to invest in a chip company, but it does mean you should understand the chip cycle, the competitive landscape, and the company's economic model. If it's too complex, that's fine. There are hundreds of simple, understandable businesses out there. The orchardist chooses apples, not orchids, because he understands apples. You must do the same. Second, you must insist on a margin of safety. This is the single most important mathematical tool for tilting odds. It is your ship's extra hull plating, your orchard's irrigation reserve, your poker pot odds. The concept is beautiful in its simplicity. Only buy an asset when you are paying significantly less than your careful estimate of its intrinsic value. Why? Because it directly accounts for the unknown and your own fallibility. Let's say you analyze a company and, after diligent work, believe its true worth is $100 per share. If you buy it at $100, your odds of success might be reasonable. But if you can buy it at $60, your odds improve dramatically. That 40% discount means the business can experience some bad luck. Your analysis can be slightly optimistic, or the market can remain pessimistic for a while, and you are still likely to do well. The margin of safety is not a guarantee against loss. It is a probability booster. It turns a good bet into a great bet. It is the practical application of wanting favorable odds. Third, you must control your behavior through rules, not whims. This is the discipline of the captain in the storm. The market's primary function is to tempt you into abandoning your high odds process. When prices are soaring for mediocre companies, it will scream at you that this time is different, that odds don't matter, that you're a fool for missing out. This is when low odds bets are masquerading as sure things. Your rule must be to be fearful when others are greedy. Conversely, when prices are collapsing for wonderful companies, the market will shriek that the world is ending, that the odds are now permanently broken. This is when high odds bets are in plain sight, yet they feel terrifying. Your rule must be to be greedy when others are fearful. You cannot rely on courage in the moment. You must write these rules down in your investment plan. Automate what you can. Set up automatic contributions to your investment account. Have a checklist you must complete before any purchase. These rules are your ship's routines. They keep you on course when visibility is zero and panic is high. Fourth, you must control your portfolio's construction, your diversification. This is how you manage the consequence of the unavoidable low-probability disaster. Even the best process investment can fail. A fraud can be hidden. A technology can be rendered obsolete. A once stable country can change its laws. If all your capital is in one or two such ideas, a single instance of bad luck can be catastrophic. But if you have built a portfolio of, say, 20 to 30 high-odds investments, the failure of one, while painful, is not fatal. It is the orchardist planting multiple apple varieties. If one proves susceptible to a new disease, the others carry on. This is not a call for owning 500 stocks you don't understand. It is a call for owning a manageable number of your best high-odds ideas so that no single unforeseen event can sink your ship. You are spreading your bets across a number of favorable but not certain opportunities. Fifth, you must control your expectations and your relationship with time. This is the final and perhaps most difficult mastery. You must internalize that a high-odds process does not mean a smooth, upward-sloping line. It means a jagged, often frustrating path that trends upward over long periods. You will have years where you lose money. You will hold stocks that go down for 2 years before going up for 10. You must reconcile yourself to this. Time is the ultimate ally of probability. The shorter your horizon, the more your result is pure luck. The longer your horizon, the more your result reflects the actual odds of your investments. A great business has a high probability of being more valuable in 20 years. The stock market has a high probability of being higher in 20 years. You must give the odds time to play out. This means investing money you will not need for at least 5 years, and preferably 10 or more. It means looking at your portfolio quarterly, not daily. It means measuring your success in decades, not days. But, you might ask, what if I do all this and I'm just unlucky? What if I pick 20 wonderful companies and a historic black swan event wipes out half of them? This is the doubt that haunts every thoughtful investor. And it is a valid question. The answer lies in the definition of unlucky. If you have truly built a portfolio of companies trading at a deep margin of safety with strong balance sheets and durable businesses, the odds of a single event permanently impairing all of them are astronomically low. It would require a systemic collapse so severe that paper currency and traditional guarantees would also be in question. In such a scenario, we are all in the same boat. What you're really insuring against with this process is not the end of the world, but the much more common and pernicious risks. Overpaying for hype, investing in fraudulent or poorly run companies, panicking during a routine downturn, and running out of patience. Your process guards against the risks that actually ruin investors every single day. It does not make you God. It makes you a prepared, disciplined sailor in a sea where most are drifting without a compass. Let us look at a final historical illustration. Consider two investors at the peak of the dot-com bubble in early 2000. One, the odds-aware investor, looked at most technology companies and saw no margin of safety, no understandable business model in many cases, and prices that required everything to go perfectly for a decade. His odds-based process told him to avoid them, even as his neighbors got rich. It felt foolish. He stuck to his boring, high-odds investments in mundane businesses selling soap, insurance, and electricity. The other, the certainty-chasing investor, believed the new paradigm had changed all the rules. He saw only guarantees of growth. He invested heavily. We know how the story ended. By 2002, the certainty chaser was ruined, his portfolio a graveyard of broken sure things. The odds-aware investor had weathered the storm. His boring companies had held their value or even grown. His patience was rewarded not because he knew the bubble would pop, but because he refused to make low-odds bets, no matter how enticing the short-term story. When the bubble burst, the odds swung dramatically in his favor, and he had the capital and courage to buy wonderful shell-shocked companies at fire sale prices. He didn't predict the storm. He just always had a seaworthy ship. In the end, your financial life is the cumulative result of hundreds of small decisions made under uncertainty. You cannot make the uncertainty go away. But you can, with diligence and humility, shape the decisions themselves. You can build a process that, like a magnet, constantly pulls you toward the high probability side of the ledger. You will make mistakes. Some of your best laid plans will fail. But if your process is sound, you will make more good decisions than bad, and your good decisions will, on average, work out better than your bad ones fail. This is the quiet, relentless mathematics of wealth building. So, start where you are. Define your circle. Insist on a margin of safety. Write down your behavioral rules. Construct a resilient portfolio. Match your investments to a time horizon you can truly honor. Then, execute. Do it again next month, and again the month after that. Do not be swayed by the siren song of certainty. Embrace the fog of probability. Your goal is not to be right every time. Your goal is to have the odds so heavily on your side that being right sometimes is enough. Remember this. In a world that venerates the prophetic genius, the real superpower is mundane discipline. The oracle tries to predict the wind. The sailor learns to trim the sails, checks the hull for leaks every day, and keeps a steady hand on the wheel. Over a long voyage, guess who is more likely to reach the distant shore? Be the sailor. Tend your ship. The favorable odds you create are the only true north you will ever have.